Welcome back. In the last two videos, we had a look at how your bat imparts speed and spin to the ball. But while a lot of that was just developing a way to think about what happens, today we'll try and answer a practical question using all the stuff that we learned in the last two videos. Why is hitting a topspin against backspin difficult? This is a point that beginners usually struggle with, and maybe over time you improve your technique and now you don't really face as much of an issue. But that still leaves the question unanswered. Why is hitting a topspin of backspin difficult? In order to answer the question, I've seen a lot of people think along the lines of, oh, you're hitting backspin against topspin, and in a way you're reversing the spin, which is why it's difficult. And to that, I don't really agree with the logic that just because you're reversing something, it should be difficult. But even if that were true, is the assumption true? Are we really reversing the spin? Let's take a look. On the left side over here, we have Timo Boll. On the right side, let's say we have Ju Se-hyuk. So let's take a look at the direction of the spin when Ju Se-hyuk hits a chop. If you observe closely, you'll observe that the ball is rotating clockwise. And now let's take another scenario where Timo Boll is hitting a topspin. Again, if you watch closely, the ball is still rotating clockwise. So essentially, when you're playing topspin against backspin, you're not really reversing the spin of the ball. In fact, the ball continues to spin the same way. So why is it so difficult? I mean, shouldn't it actually make it easier? If the ball was actually spinning the same way and I need to spin it the same way, then why does it make it that much more difficult for me? To begin with, we recognize that we're using frictional force of the rubber when we're aiming to hit topspin against backspin. So let us revise a little bit of what we learned in the previous video. So what matters for this direction of the tangential force is not the absolute speed of your racket, but rather the relative speed between your bat and the point of the ball where it contacts it. Given that, let's look at what is happening when you're hitting topspin against backspin. So you've got the ball over here which is rotating like this, and you've got your bat and you're trying to lift it. Okay. The point where your bat contacts the ball is actually moving up. If the speed of your bat in the upward direction is not greater than the speed of this point, then you will not be able to lift it and it will go into the net. So in order to lift it, you have no option but to have the speed of your bat greater than the speed of the ball at this point. And here we understand why it's difficult. Because as a beginner, if you're playing counter, you can always adjust the speed of your bat and play at a pace that you are comfortable with. But if you're trying to hit a topspin against backspin, you can't do this with a slow swing speed. You do need a swing speed that will match the spin of the ball. In fact, even exceed it if you're to put your own spin on the ball. You can't really do this if you're facing heavy backspin. Okay, you might say, you understand that, but the ball could be spinning very heavily. Why should I even believe that I would be able to match the spin of the ball just with my hand speed? Well, to that effect, I could calculate the average spin of the ball, the speed of this point, and then show you that, your hand could possibly create that much speed. But I don't really have to work out all those calculations. All that I need to tell you is that the backspin that you do receive was created by somebody else with the swing of their hand. So if they're able to create that spin with their hand, you should be able to overcome that spin with your hand as well. And also, given that due to some air resistance, the spin of the ball will decrease while it reaches you. So in order to put your own spin on the ball, you should be able to do it. If he was able to put the spin on the ball, you should be able to lift it, assuming that your partner is also human and has the physical limitations of a human. If you've ever played with a robot, try this out for fun. Set the spin to backspin and send it to the max level of backspin. And try if you can lift the ball. You will hit it into the net, and you could try and convince yourself that, oh, somehow I'm not really using force from my legs, or I'm missing the energy, my technique is poor. You may think all these things, but at the end of the day, you're just not being able to match the speed of the ball. And therefore it will go into the net. Another reason for this is that a robot does not impart speed and spin to the ball with just one stroke. There's a separate mechanism to spin the ball and a separate mechanism to shoot the ball. So you can have any spin and any speed, they're not dependent. Now that you understand this, I'm not saying it will be easier the next time you try to do this, but hopefully if you're still missing the ball or it's still going to the net, maybe now you can think of what ways you could change your action so that you do send it the other way. Some of you might say it's not actually that difficult, and if you use power from the legs, use your waist, in general use your body momentum, then it becomes a lot easier. But the point is that all these things that people mention, at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is somehow increase the speed of the bat at which you contact the ball. How they manage to do that? Well, we'll look at that in a later video. But swing speed does matter, which is why you look at a lot of professional players, doing physical training in order to increase their swing speed. Finally, I personally have a variant to this topspin against backspin that does not have to be this difficult. When you're trying to hit topspin against backspin using friction, you're kind of taking the spin head on. But there's another way you could do this. You don't have to take it completely in the way that, you apply your force parallel. You could use some part of the force perpendicular, as in, you could just lift the ball, right? I mean, of course, if you lift the ball like this, then your opponent can see what you're doing and they might go in for an easier kill. Another way that you could disguise this is you could use the action of a normal topspin, and what you're basically doing is you lift the ball kind of like this, but finally when you finish the action, you still end like this. So if someone's not watching closely, it will just appear to them as if you've added a lot of topspin to the ball, when in fact all you're doing is just lifting it like this. Give the impression that I'm exerting a lot of force, then a lot of the people get fooled into thinking that I've put a lot of spin on the ball and they'll end up blocking it into the net. If you find playing topspin against backspin too tiring in the rally, you could throw a couple of these in between and catch your breath. Push. Okay, so that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, consider subscribing, because next time we'll be taking a look at another similar case example and see how we can figure something out using what we've learned so far. If there's something specific that you'd like to see, do leave a comment below. And as always, thanks for watching.